Hello and welcome to the Humble Ego Podcast, a space we can have truthful conversations about the uncomfortable, hard and rewarding parts of being a creative. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joy, and through conversations with the creators I admire, I want to figure out how we can stay balanced, productive, true to our authentic selves, and just figure it all out whilst putting our work out into the world. Today is a really exciting episode because I'm joined with a super talented filmmaker, photographer, jewelry maker, just IT extraordinaire.
The camera guy.
Yeah, the camera guy, the guy that's behind all of these episodes, also happens to be my brother.
Eden.
Yeah, Eden. Woo! I have wanted to have you on a podcast episode for so long. I mean, you've been in a few of my vlog episodes throughout the years, but we've never actually done a sit down video, and we're obviously very close. You were such a big reason why I can do so much of the things that I can do with Humble Ego, with this podcast, with film things, even with my own YouTube channel. And yeah, you're one of my main biggest creative collaborators, and I am constantly in awe of you and how much you have grown, because obviously as an older sister as well. And I am older, guys. Everyone thinks that he's my older brother.
I'm 19.
He's 19. I'm 22, turning 23 this year. So there's 3.5 year difference.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've just loved watching you just become the person you are, but also as a creative, just all that you have done and helped me create. I'm just constantly blown away. So I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks. My pleasure. I'm excited too.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. And so I kind of wanted to start, I mean, obviously siblings, we know each other better than anyone.
Yeah.
But I would love you to just share a little bit about yourself, just what brought you to this point, kind of what led you to start your creative journey with, mainly cameras, would you say?
Yeah, I've kind of gone through phases of being almost obsessive over different things, and then I get really into it and I research a bunch about it and I learn everything I can, and then I kind of tend to move on. But video and photography is one of the things that I really got into, and it actually stuck. So yeah, it's something that's very different between us. Is like every time, let's say I want to buy a new camera gear or lens or just anything, to be honest, any investment in my life, I just can't bring myself to research. I just find it so boring. I'll watch maybe a few YouTube videos and comparisons of this and that, but generally I'll just be Eden, help. And then Eden's those videos
fuck.
as well that you watch are the ones that I tell you to watch.
Yeah,
just watch this and
Eden
decide.
sends me links.
No, but it's good. I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah,
especially when I can buy cool shit, but I don't have to pay for it. You do it and then I get to steal it later.
No, but it's honestly such an amazing quality because the amount of shit you just know. You're also amazing at storing information. I mean, you might disagree, but every time I kind of share something with you, you have some sort of fact or information to back it up, or something that you've heard, and it really blows my mind. It's really probably one of the main differences I can really say about us is I'm way more of the creative feeling side, and you have a lot more of the analytical. But even saying that, you also have this incredible emotional intelligence as well, which is, I feel is very rare with the type of people like you that are very analytical and all that stuff. Can you tell I'm a bit obsessed with him? But
happens.
No, it's really amazing. And yeah, because you also have this whole side of your creative, all that we just mentioned. But like I said, obviously our mum is not obviously, but if you don't know, our mum is a relationship therapist, counselor, psychotherapist. I fuck it up every time.
Psychotherapist and couples counselor.
Yeah, and as we've gotten older, it's become kind of evident that I feel you could very much, if you wanted to, be also a psychologist.
Mom
or
really wants that.
Yeah. But I feel you really could, and it's you've said in our life and in conversations before that you do tend to be a lot of the time the friend in the group that a lot of people feel safe to open up to and stuff like that. So yeah, how has like that side of you and the creative side of you and all that kind of come together in your life?
Yeah. I don't know if this episode is coming out before or after the one with Mum, because there's going to be a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
But I think, like you were saying with the episode of Mum, like a lot of the creative aspects and like a lot of the capabilities that I have, I really feel like I've gotten from them.
Yeah.
Like seeing them growing up, because all I really saw of them growing up was when they were already in Australia, kind of building their lives, and like all of the struggles and things that they had to go through with their businesses and with like finding out how to get money and like all of that stuff. I always saw like such a drive of like, if you want to do something, there is no one that's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn about something, or if you want to be able to do something, like you want to develop the capabilities within yourself, learn, go, do it. Like there's no one, because especially when you're younger, there's no like, oh, I'm a 12-year-old. Like, yeah, I'm going to go to uni and study this like specified course.
Yeah.
Like if you want to learn something, like say learning how to use a camera, go watch YouTube videos, like go read articles, go like try and figure it out yourself. And if you're not driven to do that, that's fine. You don't have to. But if you want the ability to do it, you have to teach yourself. There's no other way to get it.
Completely.
So seeing that aspect of like, also with them, they were kind of like, okay, well, how do we get money? We don't want to work like in some corporate office job for someone else. So if we want money, we have to build a business. We don't know how to, like they had a car washing business.
So
had a car wash. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they learned, they developed products. They got their own like, they differentiated themselves from the market by making it like completely green without like use of excess water.
Yeah.
So that kind of drive to learn and to improve and to evolve was like 100%. It's from them.
So true. So true. And I feel like we were, unlike mom and dad, grew up in a world where there is YouTube videos. Like you can find so much online. And like, I would agree with you. Like every time someone asks like, oh, you know, like how did you learn to edit? How did you learn to film? I'm just like, bless you.
Thanks.
I don't know if that's a bless you. What do you say to a cough?
You don't. I appreciate it anyway,
though. But yeah, like I learned everything from YouTube videos and just from like trying it out and being like, well, that didn't work. And I think there is something about, I don't want to call mum and dad dodgy at all because they're not, but like they definitely just took things in the matter of their own hands and just like figured it out. And I think we both definitely learned that quality. Which is kind of funny, and another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is just like our setups throughout the years and how we do some of the things are so...
They're so funny. It's like 100% stuff that comes from Abba, from our dad.
Yeah.
Which is like...
Fucking sticky tape.
Yeah, we had a shoot... all of the photos that you see on the Humble Ego website where she's selling like her pendants and stuff.
All the jewelry,
Yeah, we took apart... We needed a pane of glass. So we pulled apart a Pulp Fiction poster that was on the wall, and we balanced the glass between two like bar stools. And then we got a box light, which I stole from my high school underneath for a backlight.
We returned the box light. Don't worry.
We returned the box light.
Don't hate us. Shoot.
And then we put a camera on a tripod that we then sticky taped to the bar stools and like hung over the things. And then we would like set them out on the glass, and that's how we took all the photos. And like,
that being said, also we had like a full like bamboo stick.
Oh my god,
like,
we
holding
did
the tripod.
Yeah, for the light as well from the top. We had like a ring light that you were using. It was so
sketchy. Like it could have fallen apart any second. And our dad actually helped us make it because we were like, okay, this is what we need, but how do we do it? And he's like, oh, no problems, I got this, and like put it all together and stuff. Like, and it worked. And like when I showed people the photos, like they were like, oh, these look sick. Like, how'd you do that? And I was like, oh, don't ask. But
I mean, even like the podcast episodes that we did before, we only had 2 tripods, but we had 3 cameras. So for the last one, we had an office chair, 3 boxes, and a portable charger that I had like stacked up on top of them, and to like balance it and make it straight. And then we had it set off to that side.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the podcast, of course, all of the things just died. The audio recording died, the camera died, and I think something else died as well.
Just everything just
so I was like running around backstage, like trying to fix everything, like trying to get all this shit working again.
But that's like just always been us. Like even
time.
right now, while we're filming this, me and Eden are probably trying to play it cool, but we're both like are the cameras working? When is this mic's going to stop working? Like, I don't know, like, fuck, like, but, that's part of the process. And I think as much as I'm like trying to get a bit more professional as I get older and do things in the right way. I mean, like today we actually got an extra tripod that we're borrowing off a friend, and I'm like, fuck, this makes things so much easier. Like sometimes it's just worth putting those investments. I'm so glad that we grew up and with this like belief that we really could do anything with zero budget. Like I would look at short films and I'm like, yeah, we can do that. Like just like get this light from this kitchen and put a red screen over it and like I don't know, with no budget so much of the stuff. And like
I love how your takeaway from that is like, yeah, we can do that. My takeaway always like, oh fuck, how are we gonna do this shit?
I just always have a lot of faith that it will just work out. Like but to be real, like there's times where it hasn't and I'm just like, 100%. Fuck, like I thought I could do that. I'm like, no, but you learn from those moments. But it's really interesting as well. Like I'm sure you've had experiences where you see other people work in a more professional setting and you're like, they do it too. Like sometimes you don't have something, you're like, okay, well let's just put your phone under this camera and then it's the right this and all that. And I think really helped with that feeling of like imposter syndrome, because I think me and you often felt that. Like we would show people projects we made or films or whatever and they'd be like, wow, and we're just there like, yeah, wow, so good, because we just know everything that went into it.
The backstory of like all the fucking ghetto shit that we had to do to make it work.
Completely. And it's so hard to see it from the outside once you know what the behind the scenes is like. Like when I see my website and like all the photos we took of all the jewelry, I'm like, I know what went into that. Like a simple photo and it's like just so different. And so when I show people and they're like, oh my god, this looks so professional, I'm like, oh thank god. It wasn't.
Like fuck, it worked.
It wasn't.
Like we literally I think you sliced your fingers open when we pulled apart the glass. Like
we did. I had cuts all over my hand. I forgot about that. See, some things I just block out. But it's the creative process, and honestly we've saved so much money from that. Like because when I did start working on other people's projects that were more that had a bigger budget and were doing it a bit more the I don't know if proper way,
or just like using things for their intended purpose.
It was like, oh my god, okay, just to hire out a studio costs so much, to hire out gear is so much, to hire out like to get a photographer, a video, like, so in that way I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of us for doing so much, because without those skills and that imagination and confidence in our abilities at times, I don't know if it's actually no, there's times where I've been like, no, we can do this. Like in the moment I'm like,
that makes one of us.
Well, I think I have to believe that way, because I'm like, it's the only way we can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like but that's definitely shaped us as creatives and stuff. I think if anything now I'm just like trying to like, okay, Joy, your business is slowly growing, like where can you start investing and like actually doing it a bit easier, like fucking getting another tripod, like that's worth it, you know? Like we don't want to fucking play around with boxes for 2 hours every time. Like time is money, and figuring that out and knowing when to invest in that, because my brain is so instantly like, oh, $500, no, we can do it, even if it takes us 5 hours, like we'll do it. But I'm like, no, okay, change mindset.
For sure. But I'm also so grateful to have the experience of doing it with like, not with nothing. Like obviously we're extremely fortunate to have like the 100%. Stuff that we do have, but the mindset of like, okay, we need to do this, we have this, how can we make it work? How can we, take a picture frame and make it into like a professional looking product photography set or whatever.
And I also feel like, to add on that, like I find so much of the time those little mistakes and things that were like not planned and had to be shifted around and stuff sometimes end up being the one thing that you're like, oh, I really like how that turned out. I think that's something I learned throughout the years, and along the way it was just like, those little mistakes that you make in a painting that then you have to like turn into something else, or like that scene that you had to do in a different place because blah blah blah, end up making the film and stuff. So definitely a fun part of the process where you just have to kind of trust, and you have to be like, well,
also low-key so satisfying when you do those kind of like
Yeah.
those weird setups, and then afterwards people are like, wow, this looks great.
It's
like,
so
it looks
rewarding.
so professional. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really want to talk to you about that and just give you guys a little insight into the behind the scenes, because it's not something I talk about on my YouTube channel a lot. But everything takes so much, you know, any creative thing, I feel like, is made to look so easy. You don't want your audience ever to be like, oh, that looks really hard. They must have struggled making the scene. You know, you want it to feel easy and pleasant to watch. But in that process, sometimes it feels like as a creative, you like no one realizes how much fucking work you put into like the simple things, you know?
And it's funny to see like people assume a lot of the easy stuff was really hard, and then a lot of the hard stuff was really easy. Yeah. Because it ends up like the easy stuff you can make look really good quite easily, like it's pretty flowy. But then the stuff that you put a lot of effort into like doing it weird or like trying to get it perfect is like, oh yeah, of course that was so fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I am freezing, bro. I'm shivering.
Are you actually?
The aircon is blowing like directly on me.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna quickly turn up the aircon.
Sitting like this the whole time.
All right, we're back. We had a little break, and just turned the aircon off.
It was freezing.
It's going directly on him, so I was getting none of it. But we're back, and I think that was a good place to stop, because now I kind of want to pivot into our relationship as siblings.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is going to be a little therapy session. No, not really. But I mean, we moved to Australia. We weren't meaning to move to Australia. That wasn't the original plan. We were just going to come traveling here. So when we came here with the family, we were in a caravan for like, we thought was going to be 6 months a year. So you can imagine us and our parents all in a caravan for like a tiny caravan. Like we were all like in the same tiny bed.
I was also a 9-month-old baby.
You were
and
young.
You were 4.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you wouldn't remember anything from that time, but like I remember we were always hanging out. Like, yeah, you were a baby, but like you were my little brother, and like, and then when we moved to the house and you got a bit older, it was still like we were always so, what it felt like, not isolated from the rest of the world, but it was very much like we had our bubble, and me and you were
lived
just
also
like,
in the fucking like rainforest.
Yeah.
We lived 45 minutes away from like the
any
closest town.
Yeah. And so we were kind of a little bit off with the fairies now.
Yeah. Definitely.
But we were just like so in our own world, and like constantly like playing with each other and stuff. Like we both have this like really clear memory of like having a fight, and then mum sending us to our rooms for like time, and then or like we had a door in between our 2 rooms and being like he she doesn't know we're still hanging out.
We would open the door and we would like make up, and we would finish our fight, and we would kind of just be like, don't tell mom, like she thinks we're still angry at each other, we're friends now. Yeah, but it was like such a good example of our friendship, which is like we really felt like it was like us against, like even when we were fighting, it was like we know what's up, you know. And so then I became a teenager. Well, no, I became a teenager, and you were still a little kid. It was more that it was probably when I turned like 12, 13. Yeah, like maybe like 13, 14 kind of thing. And so you would have been like 10, 9 kind of thing. And you were still very keen to like play and do all that stuff. And I was like starting to grow up, and you would get on my nerves. And that's when you became like more of an angsty teenager and like desiring more autonomy and like. Yeah. I just wanted time in my room. Yeah, you get to that age where it's like the little kid stuff is no longer cool. Yeah. But I was still very much like, yeah, let's play together. Let's do this. And then you'd get so frustrated because I would be like, no. Also, as a 9-year-old boy, you have so much energy. It's always hyper. Like you want to be doing shit. And like. Yeah. And you were very like, very hyper, and like you had a lot of energy. You were very adventurous, which is so funny because now if you meet Eden, he's like the biggest chiller. But back then I think you had to like get it all out at that age, because like you could not leave him for a second without him like climbing a tree or like trying to like figure out a tool, or like you were so like hands-on and like figuring everything out. And I think I would get so irritated at that, because I was just like, to be fair, it wasn't just you getting irritated. Like I was really obnoxious kid.
Yeah. And we like every sibling, like we would scream at each other and we would have these fights and they would become violent.
And then you would run to your room and then I taught myself how to pick locks so I would open your door. Like
but that's just the like older sister, younger brother dynamic, I think. I mean, everyone has their specific one and that was kind of us. So we had this period where we were like really like, I would be like, I hate Eden, and you'd be like, well, Joy's annoying, and and I'd beg mum, I'd like cry to mum, I'd be like, he's so annoying, he's not listening, blah blah blah, and Eden would be like, I didn't do anything. And
no, what I would do is every time I would annoy you until you hit me, and then as soon as there was like a hit, I would run to mum and be like, Joy hit me, and I'm like,
well, it was not provoked.
He's been banging on my door for 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was, and it was
tactics.
It was really
devious.
Yeah. It was really funny. And then I think, I don't know what age it was, but maybe even like we were always friendly and close. Like even in that period, it wasn't like we actually hated each other's guts, but there was like a rough period of like, get this fucking little boy away from me.
Yeah.
But then when we got older, I think that's when we started being like, I started opening up more and like being like, oh shit, he can actually have conversations, like he's grown up. Because for me it was so long, like he was like, it's my little brother, and then it was like, oh my god, wait, what? Like my brother has a life. And like even when you got your license, like what, 2 years ago or something like that, or even more now, 3 years ago, like I remember just being like, oh my god, he can drive, like I don't know, was able to be like, oh my god, I remember me at that age, like he has a full life. And so I would say the past, like, I don't know, like what, 4 years or something.
Honestly, I'd say it even maybe a little bit more.
Yeah,
like
5 years.
I think
6.
As soon as I got into high school,
yeah, that's true.
That's when I really chilled out and relaxed and like grew up.
And then it was also
rapidly.
like, okay, we're in high school, like there was a period where you went into year 8 and I was in year 12, right? Yeah. So like we had 1 year where we were
both in high school.
School, and like I don't know, just seeing you around and being like, oh, we kind of know the same people and have the same teachers and all that was like a very cool experience to be like, oh, we're actually kind of on the same page finally after like this period of being in such different worlds, what it felt like at least. And then like I think as an older sister, there was periods where we did get older, and you know, like obviously as a human you go through things with breakups and friendships and just life and stress and all that stuff, and I just started opening up to you more, like when things were happening and you were like, what's wrong? It's so easy as an older sibling to kind of, I don't know, maybe have that little bit of ego of being like, oh, don't tell them, because you're like meant to have it all together. And like the older sibling, but I was like very much like, no, I need to be open with him because I need him to be able to trust me with his stuff as well. Because like, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you were, especially when you were younger, when you stepped into that first like teenage thing, you were quite reserved, I felt like, and so I really was like, you suddenly became so, from like this like crazy like kid that I could just know everything about, you became very like mysterious to me. And I was like very much like, I want us to have a relationship where we can feel like we can talk to each other about everything. And so like I started opening up, and like, you know, if something would happen, like I'd be like, yeah, this is happening and blah blah blah. And like I think it really helped us, because also it was like, oh my god, you're able to hold space so well and you give such good advice. Like sometimes you would say things and I'd be like, wait, what? You're so young. Like that's kind of great. None of my friends have even told me that. Like, thank you. But yeah, then I think from then I could see suddenly you were able to also, in those moments where you were maybe struggling or going through something, you were able to come to me and be like, yeah, this is what's happening. Yeah. And that just put us on even playing fields. I don't know. I just wanted to also hear like your perspective, because that's obviously how I saw the whole situation, but you were.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I went from, like you were saying, like a really outgoing, like hyper active, like super kind of crazy kid to then swinging, in my opinion at least, way too far the other way. Yeah. And I don't even feel like I was reserved, but I got to a point where I was like just closed off. Like I fully kind of, I think there was an aspect of, because I got so much pushback from like my energy and from, you know, it was honestly like uncomfortable to be around, and like it's not a good state to interact with other people in. I kind of went too far the other way, and I was like, all right, then there's just going to be nothing. I'm just going to stay in my room. I'm going to, talk to my friends when I'm at school, but like, that's it.
Yeah. And even your friends, like you were feeling, because you've always been very mature for your age. Like once you stepped into that, like you've always been very wise and mature. And I remember you coming home from school and being like, oh my God, everyone's so young and annoying. And I'm like, bro, they're the same
You're
age
one
as
of
you.
them. Yeah.
But it was true. Like they weren't on your level for a really long time. Like,
Yeah.
and you were quite isolated in that way, I think.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of that was kind of self-inflicted though.
Yeah.
Because I took on the perspective of other people of like what I had kind of felt that I was perceived at when I was younger, which was, the hyperactive, like immature kid. And then I started kind of looking at people the other way and I was like, well, I shut myself off to that. Why can't they? Like they're all so immature and whatever.
Wow. That didn't click for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like what you were saying before of like not keeping the perfect facade of the older sister where everything is fine and stuff, when I started realizing that you, which is someone that I really, really admire, also had, stuff that was going on and you had difficulties and struggles like in your relationships or your friendships or in your personal life or whatever, I started realizing that like there is no point to kind of putting forth something that you perceive as perfect because it's so obviously bullshit.
Yeah.
Like there's no one that for any length of time that is just like everything goes perfectly for them. The only people you think about is like people that you don't know. And then as soon as you get to know them, you're like, oh wait, this
you have
person
some
like
layers.
yeah, you had some shit going on in your life or you're going through something now or whatever. And it's like that is in a sense like what makes you a person and what makes you interesting and what makes you like you said, you have layers, you have different aspects to yourself.
Completely. Yeah. Just so interesting to think about and just like everything, that we've been through. And I think such a big part of that as well is our mum as well, that has like pushed me so much to be open and pushed you. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because mum would always push me a lot to try and open up.
Yeah.
But there was something about her like pushing me to open up that made me push her back. Yeah, exactly. Like I was very resistant to that, but I think the most important thing for me was to see you and also other people I admire, like some of my closest friends, like have issues and go through stuff and realizing like everyone's broken in some kind of a way, but I still love the people that are broken, and I realize that it's okay for myself.
You love them more,
yeah,
because you're like, oh my God, you're like me, and like I can trust you. And I think that's what I realized is that vulnerability really is like also contagious. Like when you see other people being vulnerable, it gives you the courage to be like, you know what, I'm also going to do that as well. But it also just allows you to like see people in just like a new way that allows you to just feel more connected to them. And I'm really glad that we have that. And I don't know, it's really interesting talking to you all about it, because I feel like we've talked about all this stuff so much, like we have so many conversations, but like I'm really like clicking it all now, just yeah, it's good.
It's like, oh, this is gonna be family therapy. No, I'm kidding. It's a full therapy session.
So true. Do you think you will maybe like do therapy when you're older, or not really?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but I'm not drawn to any sort of academic study at the moment. Like, I'm very much like, I finished high school a few months ago, and I'm very much now kind of, I want to invest in myself and see where I can take things before I step back into some kind of a system. Yeah. Because I really struggled in school. Like I don't do well with being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what the outcomes are. Like all of that kind of stuff really irks me. From a really young age.
You've always been like that.
So I'm very much enjoying my freedom.
Another very big difference between us was like, I loved school. I loved the structure. I loved the just like achievement based kind of, you do a project and then you get it done. And I don't know, I thrived off that. Yeah. But that's also because we went to a very unique, beautiful school, like super creative and stuff. Like I don't think I would have had the same experience in maybe a different school. But yeah, I loved school and I was so excited to go, whereas you were always more the like younger rebellious, like never wanted to go to school, and just very different experience. And I think that's also where like it can feel like you've kind of shared with me how like I'm like the perfect older sister and you're like not, but it's not that. We were just completely different people. And like, you know, I think you for so long put me on this pedestal because I tried so hard in school and all that. But like I was like constantly looking at you being like, oh my God, he's younger than me, but he knows so much more. And like I think as we got older, we learnt each other's different strengths and like really took the ego out of it and no comparison, and are really able to like support each other in the weaknesses of each other. Like we really balance each other out, which is what I tell a lot of my friends, like when they're like, oh, like, you know, what's your relationship with Eden and stuff, it's like you balance me out so much. And like I mean I love our parents more than anything in the world. I love our family, and they both mum and dad are so supportive of me, like with everything I've done with
They're
my
amazing,
with my work and everything. Like they've always been number one cheerleaders, and that's honestly one of the reasons I've had the courage to do everything that I do. At the same time though, like I'm their daughter, they're gonna see me in this like perfect way and like be like, yeah, this is great. And so I have always, even though it's been hard at times, I've always really appreciated you being that person in the family that will be honest with me. Like I'll show mum and dad a video and they'll be like, yeah, great, blah, 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 like love it. And then I'll show you and you're like,
shit, do it again.
Yeah. Like, and I've had to talk to you over the years being like, hey, I'm actually a really sensitive person. And when you give me this feedback, I need you to give it to me in a nice way or like in the right time and all that stuff. But at the same time, like I know and that I can 100% trust you in different creative things, because as a creative, there is all these moments where you're like, I need someone to tell me how it is from the outside, because it's so hard to tell, you know. And having you in my life and having someone that I can be like, all right, what do you think, honestly? And you being like, like this is good, but this is shit.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, true, thank you, like has been so helpful. Also the fact that we're like, you know, now like same kind of age, like young, know what's going on in pop culture, you know, mum and dad a lot of times don't.
A little out of touch, yeah.
Yeah, so I thank you for that, honestly.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that.
My
because
pleasure.
I feel like that's such a thing in creativity as well, as having those people that you can trust
to tell you what it is actually,
to tell you how it is actually, and the people that you feel comfortable enough in those vulnerable moments of like the first draft of something before you've put something out in the world. It's so vulnerable, and like to feel safe to show that to someone and know that they're not just gonna tell you it's good, or that, you know, if they will tell you it's good, that you can be like, okay, like it's actually
it actually
good.
is,
yeah, like it's really really helpful.
That is a good point that I have heard from you, especially, that like I need to work on my delivery of feedback, because I can tend to go a little bit too far to that. And there is a sense of vulnerability, especially with early drafts, like you were saying, like when it's not polished, it's not structured properly, it's not done like, you know, to the finish that it will be later. It's so easy to just be like, well, yeah, obviously it's shit, but like, do you see that the core of something is good? And a lot of times I don't. But I think from working in Australia, we have something called a major work in year 12, which is like a very big project that's almost completely self-run by the students. And I did a film for that. Yeah. And I think through that process of doing that film, I gained so much perspective of like the process and how stuff looks before it's polished. But you can tell that there's like a gem underneath. Mm-hmm. And through that, hopefully, I can give you some better feedback and be a little bit more sensitive to the process, but also work on like my recognition of when something is actually like going somewhere. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was also going to say, is like as a creative, it's so hard to really understand it unless you've been in it, of that place of vulnerability and needing that feedback. Because when you haven't done it like that, and that's why I don't ever show people stuff like that if I know they're not creative people,
Yeah.
because once you're in that situation, you really understand what it takes, and the process of it, and like the first draft, and needing that like honest feedback about how, and you know, all the stuff that goes into it. But like, if you haven't been through that, it's so hard to understand how vulnerable it is, because you see a thing and you're like, well, yeah, it's good, but like this is bad. But as a creative, it's like everything is like, wow, well, I put so much effort into this, or this and that. And so even hearing you say that, like, you know, through your own creative process, you've understood more how it feels. I really get that. And that's why I'm always like so trying to encourage creatives, because it is so vulnerable to like make something, and so much comes up. And that's where like the humble ego is so important, because in a way you have also, from your honesty and being like, that's not really doing what you want it to do, has allowed me to be like, okay, I also at times need to
recognize that
have that humility to be like, okay, it's not perfect, I can do it again, blah blah blah, but also have the ego to be like, okay, like let's not give up though, like because it's so easy when people give you that criticism to be like, oh fuck, I'm worthless and I'm right, well I shouldn't have done this, but like, and that's definitely my default sometimes, is to be like, oh fuck, well
me too,
what's the point then? But it's having that place in yourself where you're like, okay, well,
trust that your vision is actually somewhere in there.
Exactly. And like, if I need to refilm this scene, okay, but like there is worth to what I'm doing, and I am, just because maybe I didn't hit the nail on that doesn't mean I'm a horrible creative or whatever. And that's where the like ego really helps, to just have that like, I got this, you know, I can do this, like even though it's hard and all of that.
It's such an overused term, but like the ability to actually recognize and trust in the process is huge. Because otherwise nothing gets done. I think we're both on some level quite perfectionist, and we get very caught up in the little details of making something perfect before we're comfortable with moving on to the next bit. And that, at least in my own experience, has been like such a huge source of like bog down and slowing down, and like you get to the point where it doesn't become perfect, and you've put in so much time and so much effort, and you're just like, you know what, fuck it, it's not working, I'm gonna trash it all. And
that's where it's like, the trust and creative process only happens once you've been able to do it a few times, and then you're like, well, I remember like the last time I did this, I also felt really shitty in this middle section, because it is really like, you get the inspiration, you're excited, but then it's like, oh my god, fuck, I need to start, and that's really stressful. And then you start, and then it's like, then you start seeing it actually come to life, and you have to like kind of find this place in yourself where you can accept your vision and then what actually came through, you know, and like that as well, like, because especially us working in film, you know, you have the film in your head, and then seeing it real, like it's not always going to line up completely, but it's also sometimes the shot you got is still really good, it's just not exactly what you thought. And that comes into this whole humble ego, and being able to like be like, no, you know what, I need to trust the process, and know that this is good, and you know, I'm learning, and it's And I feel like, there's this whole like birth almost like with every creative project that is something I've learned just from doing things over there. And that's why YouTube really helps me, because I'm like, well, fuck, I need to get it. Because if I didn't have to put a video out, I could easily just make videos and never put them out. And that's what happened in after high school. I was feeling like I made so many YouTube videos that I never posted, because they were never good enough. And even the videos I post now, like it's not like all of them I'm like, oh my god, I feel so great about this one.
This is perfect.
Like most of the time, like I'm like, I don't feel like anything I really create is like at this standard. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't want that to stop me from creating. And I know that I just have to keep doing it and keep getting better. And it's about just like, continuing the cycle. And then sometimes you just fall with this one thing that you're like, wow, that actually worked. But you couldn't have got there if you didn't do all the other ones, you know? So we had more technical difficulties. It's honestly always a joke at this point. Like we
Murphy's Law, the podcast.
Literally. Oh fuck. Well, because you're usually behind all the cameras, so we're having to do this alone, and it's really just putting the trust into the things that should not be trusted right now. But we're back, and I wanted to end on kind of talking to you about the fact that I feel like we're both in a very similar, I mean, we're in completely different places in our life. You've just graduated from high school. I am 22, turning 23 this year, but we're both kind of in this like, okay, what's the next step? And the reason I thought this was interesting to bring up is because I feel like as a creative, it's a lot harder to, I mean, I feel like everyone though, and everyone is a creative, but like it's hard to figure out, yeah, like where to go. Like there's so many options, and like, I don't know, like in a traditional job, right? Like you finish high school, you go to uni, you study, then you get the job, then you work up the ladder and get more promoted and blah, blah, blah. But like in a creative job, it's like,
there's almost like a clear path with the conventional approach.
Yeah.
But when you're a creative, it's like, well
what,
do your thing.
yeah.
Good luck.
And like you just don't know when opportunities are going to come your way. And yeah, it's really confusing. And I've been feeling super lost. I actually feel a lot better now in the past week since like starting the podcast, and I'm having more rhythm, and
Me too.
I have a little bit more clarity about like the future and what I want. But I still have no idea. And there's moments along the way that I'm just like, fuck, like
what are you doing?
What am I
Like,
doing? Yeah, and like, am I getting anywhere with anything?
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you as well, because I remember myself after graduating high school, that like immense pressure of like, fuck, I need to know and do something. And like, how are you just like managing that, and like what is your coping mechanism when people ask?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I have various coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Predominantly denial. That one seems to be working out pretty well.
Yeah.
Because if I don't know where I'm going, then no one else has to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the question that everyone gets. It's like, oh, what are your plans? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a trip planned out with some of my friends going to Japan. So
Yeah.
that's been a good, like, almost distraction that I can be like, oh yeah, well, I'm going traveling in a bit, and like blah blah blah. But then I'm gonna get back from traveling, and it's like,
then it's gonna hit.
What do I do now? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling like it's weird. I'm like crushed under the possibilities, because on the one hand, the world is my oyster and I can do whatever I want, and I'm finally free. And on the other hand, fuck, I'm finally free and I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And it's like there's so many options, but all of them suck in a way. It's like,
I feel you way too hard.
yeah, it's because all of it it requires some level of, it requires some level of like a leap of faith.
Yeah.
That is, who would have thunk, requires a lot of faith.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's hard to find that. I feel like, especially for me, because I got so used to and so comfortable within like the system of school, which is, it's in some ways much easier to work through, because you have very clear, like, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
This is when you need to do it by, which I hated that.
Yeah.
But now looking back, I can see like, wow, that actually really helped me to be productive. Because now it's like, okay, well, I want to, you know, start making this jewelry more.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no one checking in on me. It's like, oh, well, you have to have this done by then and this done by then. And it's like, I can set it for myself, but again, no one's holding me accountable.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have to somehow figure out a way to keep myself going.
Yeah.
But that's very hard.
It's hard. And like, even like with this podcast as an example, I've been wanting to do this for literally like
months.
No, like almost like 2 years or something.
Really?
Like I've been talking about it, and then like last year I started buying the equipment, and then like and then it took months to even like start. And honestly, one of the biggest things that helped was like, okay, Eden, can you help me? And then you were like, yeah. And then we kind of held each other accountable. So you were like, okay, are we filming that day? And I was like, oh fuck, all right, I guess like we are.
Well, at the beginning I was like, no, I can't, because I'm in school.
Yeah.
There's no way, I don't have time.
Yeah. And I think until I had you on board, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And I think it's an interesting one to navigate as a creative, like these paths that we really have to carve out ourselves and structure our days almost like we're our own, like, you know, create that school structure, or like that structure of like, okay, what do I actually need to do? And it's even hard, like, hey, well, what do I do? What do I put my energy into? Because you obviously, like, we need to make money. Like, and I remember for so long after graduating, I was like, I want to do YouTube, but it was so scary.
How was that gonna pay for anything?
It was like, it wasn't. And but I was like, I really hope it will. And so I was like, started doing it, and super, super insecure about it at the beginning, because I felt my whole thought thing behind it was like, okay, well, I did it in high school, but like that's high school. Like you can be kind of cringy in high school, you know, whatever. And then after high school, I was like, oh, well, if I do it now, people are going to know that I actually like doing this and care about this and like want this to go somewhere. And that was really scary because I was putting myself out there and being like, hey guys, like welcome to a new vlog. But I was like, who the hell is even watching this, you know? Yeah. And then I remember over quarantine, I kind of just like had this moment of like, I just want to, like, it's the beginning of 2020. I was like, I love vlogging. I want to film. I want to do this. And I have to let go of this idea in my head that it's going to go somewhere, because I'd been doing it for like years at that point and it was going nowhere. You started
nowhere. Joyish when you were 12, didn't you?
14, yeah. And like, yeah, I had like 800 subscribers or whatever. Like it was like very,
but it was like mostly our friends.
Yeah, like it was exactly like, and even that's such a weird thing, growing up in such a small town. It was like, who are the people that are actually watching this? Like, is it people I know? Because that made me feel a bit like, fuck, like, I don't know. Yeah. And anyway, but then I got to this point. I remember I really got to this point where I was like, fuck, Joy, you have to let this go. Like, it's stopping you. You love doing this. You're going to be doing this even if you're not getting any money for it or anything or any recognition. So might as well just fuck it and just have fun. And as soon as I really said that, like literally a week later, I had videos on my channel kind of blow up and I gained like 10k subscribers in 10 days, I remember. And I was like, oh my God. It was like as soon as I was just like trusted the process and did it truly out of just like following what I love to do, it kind of clicked. And that has been such a lesson in like trying to follow as a creative, just following that intuition of like, yeah, you never know what's gonna make you the money in the end or whatever, but just trusting that. And another thing was like my channel started to grow and I really started hating my job at the time. I was working in a warehouse and it wasn't a bad job. I just was like, I'd been doing it for a while. It was repetitive and I was like starting to feel just so gross being there. And so I quit it. And that was before I could even thought I could make money off YouTube. Like it was growing, but I was like, you know, 10k subscribers. Like I'm not going to fucking get like sponsors and like, so I was like, okay, I need to find another job. And then like 2 days after that, because I'd finally quit my job and had this time to myself, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make myself a necklace and post it on Instagram, not thinking much of it. And then people started asking if they could buy it. And then I was like, you know what, I actually have time and I need money, sure. And that's kind of how selling all the jewelry started. And so I guess like what I'm trying to say with this whole story is that like I've just learned, and I'm really trying to remind myself that like you just have to trust in the process and keep doing you. And yeah, I've had random jobs. I was working in a lolly shop for a while. I was working at reception job at a beauty salon for ages, and like I learnt from those experiences as well and stuff. And not to say that like as a creative there's nothing wrong with having like another job as well that you do to like make extra money, you know, but also just like trusting, like if you love doing something, just do it and it will come. And that's what I really hope you do, because you're so talented, and I just know that amazing things are going to come your way. You just need to keep doing you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, it's still in like the stage of a fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to get to that point where I can support myself doing my own stuff and like kind of find my own enjoyment through that. But I don't know, like we said, it's a leap of faith and it's hard and it's scary and it's like exactly like you said, you need to make money somehow, and these things take time. A lot of like most often it takes a while to get going. And like you said, you've been doing YouTube since you were 14, and I think only in the past like 2 or 3 years it's been like enough to support you. So I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. To end it, I would love to know, this is a question I want to kind of ask everyone at the end of the episodes. In this kind of current point in your life right now, are you feeling like you need more humility or more ego? Like, what do you feel like you need to work on more?
Honestly, both. I think there's a lot of things that I'm not overconfident in, but I think I'm a lot better at than I actually am without actually putting forth the work to get to the point that I would feel comfortable calling myself like pretty good at that. Like for instance with my photography, like it's something that I really enjoy and I think I'm pretty good at it, but I'm also very much aware that I'm not like to the level where I can just set up a business and start, you know, doing weddings or product photography or anything like that. But there are also aspects that I feel like I need to work a little bit more on my ego and to recognize that, you know, I've been working at, you know, certain things for a long time. That is something that I am pretty good at, and that if I build myself the proper system around it, I can support myself with.
100%.
It's just, you know, a matter of actually doing it.
Yeah. True. Well, yeah, even you saying that, I'm like, fuck, you can do wedding photography. Like, you'd be incredible at it.
Yeah.
But it's just doing it. But yeah, you're amazing. And I can't wait to see all the things you do. And I'm so grateful that I get to use so much of your skills in my own projects. And yeah, I love you as a brother and a friend and fellow creative. So thanks for being on the pod.
My pleasure. Well, thanks for having me.
Bye, guys.